Welcome to A Little Bit of Everything. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most influential sales books ever written, The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. Now, don't tune out if you don't see yourself as a salesperson. Here's the truth. We're all selling every single day. You sell your ideas at work, you sell your value in relationships, you even sell yourself when convincing your kids to eat vegetables. In this episode, we'll uncover the hidden psychology behind persuasion and influence. And by the end, you'll have a set of powerful tools to apply in business, career, and life. Let's begin with the foundation, the inner game of selling. Part 1. The Inner Game. Brian Tracy begins with a profound and timeless idea. You cannot outperform your self-image. Think about that for a moment. No matter how much skill you have, no matter how many techniques you learn, if deep down you believe you are not good enough or that success is reserved for someone else, that belief will quietly sabotage your results. Your self-image acts like a thermostat. It sets the upper limit for what you feel capable of achieving. If you see yourself as unworthy, unprepared, or simply not a good salesperson, you'll unconsciously prove yourself right. You'll hesitate when you should act, you'll back off when you should push forward, and you'll walk away when the opportunity was right there in front of you. Now here's the good news. Your self-image is not fixed. You created it, often without realizing it, and you can rebuild it deliberately to support the level of success you want. Let's break this down into 3 core ideas. 1. Belief in your product or service is non-negotiable. People can sense when you're not convinced. It leaks out in the tone of your voice, in the way you hesitate, or in the subtle language you use. On the other hand, when you genuinely believe that what you're offering can make a difference, that belief is magnetic. Think of the last time someone recommended a restaurant, a movie, or a book with genuine excitement. You could almost feel their enthusiasm. That's the same energy you need to bring when presenting your product, your service, or even your own ideas. Ask yourself, do I truly believe in what I'm offering? If not, is it because I haven't taken the time to understand the value? Or is it because I need to improve what I'm offering before I can stand behind it 100%? Number 2, confidence is contagious. People don't just buy a product, they buy you. They buy your certainty, your conviction, and your confidence. Think about how reassuring it feels when you're around someone who is calm, composed, and certain about what they're saying. Now compare that with how unsettling it feels when someone is unsure, apologetic, or hesitant. Even if the hesitant person has a great product, their lack of confidence makes you doubt. Confidence doesn't mean arrogance. It's not about being louder, pushier, or domineering. True confidence is quiet, steady, and grounded. It comes from knowing that you bring value, and from having rehearsed and prepared enough to back that belief with skill. The more confident you are in yourself, the more your customers or your colleagues or even your family will feel confident in you as well. And number 3, visualizing success programs your mind to perform better in real life. Here's a fascinating principle of psychology. Your brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Athletes use this to their advantage all the time. They mentally rehearse the perfect golf swing, the flawless free throw, or the winning sprint across the finish line. Sales and life work the same way. When you consistently imagine yourself succeeding in conversations, in meetings, and in presentations, you actually wire your brain to expect that outcome. And when you expect success, you behave differently. You stand taller. You speak more clearly, you smile more naturally, and people respond. This isn't just theory. Studies show that visualization activates the same neural pathways in the brain as actual practice. It's mental rehearsal, and it gives you a head start every time you walk into a real-life situation.
Now, let's make this practical. Pause for a moment and think about one limiting belief you've carried about selling, persuading, or influencing others. Maybe it's something like, I'm not pushy enough to sell. People won't listen to me. I'm too inexperienced. Whatever it is, write it down. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Now, right underneath that limiting belief, rewrite it into an empowering one. For example, limiting belief, I'm not pushy enough to sell. Empowering belief, I provide real value and people benefit from hearing what I offer. Notice how different that feels. One drains your energy, the other lifts you up. The more you practice reframing your beliefs, the more natural it becomes. Over time, your self-image shifts. You start seeing yourself as capable, resourceful, and persuasive, because that's who you really are. This inner game sets the stage for everything else in selling and persuasion. Before we get into techniques, strategies, and methods, remember this: your mindset is the foundation. If the foundation is shaky, nothing you build will stand. But if the foundation is strong, every strategy you learn will multiply in effectiveness. So start with belief, start with confidence, and start with visualization. When the inner game is strong, the outer game becomes so much easier.
Part 2. Why people buy. Here's a shocking truth that Brian Tracy highlights early in The Psychology of Selling. People don't buy for logical reasons. They buy for emotional ones. At first, that might sound counterintuitive. After all, most of us like to think of ourselves as rational, logical beings. We compare prices, we weigh options, we read reviews, we make pros and cons lists. But beneath all of that analysis lies something deeper: emotion. Think about the last major purchase you made. Maybe it was a new phone, a car, or even a vacation. On the surface, you probably justified it with logical reasons. The phone had a better camera, the car had better mileage, the vacation package was on sale. But if you're honest with yourself, was it really about those features? Or was it about how it made you feel? That new phone gave you a sense of status or excitement. That car gave you a sense of security, freedom, or pride. That vacation wasn't just about the deal. It was about the joy, relaxation, or memories you knew you'd create. This is Tracy's key point. People don't buy products, they buy benefits. Imagine this: you're selling a power drill. Now, most people think the job is to talk about the features of the drill, the voltage, the battery life, the ergonomic handle. But as Tracy puts it, nobody actually wants a drill. What they want is the hole in the wall so they can hang the family photo, mount the TV, or finally finish that shelf project in the garage. Or consider a gym membership. People don't really want to pay for access to treadmills and weight machines. What they want is the confidence in the mirror, the surge of energy, or the pride of fitting back into their favorite pair of jeans. When you shift your perspective from product features to emotional benefits, you start speaking directly to what matters most to people. That's when they lean in, because now you're addressing their true motivations. The emotional triggers. So, what are those core emotions that drive buying decisions? Tracy identifies a few of the most powerful ones. Desire for gain. People are motivated to get ahead, to achieve more, to earn more, or enjoy more. They want to feel like their lives are improving. A product or service that promises growth, progress, or advantage taps into this desire. Fear of loss. Just as strong, and often stronger, is the fear of losing out. Studies in psychology consistently show that people will do more to avoid loss than to achieve gain. This is why phrases like limited time offer or while supplies last are so effective. They trigger the deep human fear of missing out. Comfort and security. Humans crave safety, stability, and peace of mind. Insurance, warranties, safety features, and customer guarantees all appeal to this emotional driver. When you reduce risk, you ease the buyer's anxiety. Recognition and status. Never underestimate the human need to be admired, respected, or noticed. Luxury brands, designer labels, high-end cars, these often sell less on practical function and more on the status they confer. Recognition makes people feel important, and importance is a powerful motivator. Think about it. Each of these emotions is universal. They cut across age, gender, culture, and background. We all feel them, and they all quietly shape our choices. The persuader's job. Your role, whether in business, leadership, or everyday persuasion, is to uncover which emotion is driving the other person's decision. It's not always obvious. Someone may say they're choosing between two phones because of the camera specs, but deep down, they want to feel like they're keeping up with technology, or they want to impress their friends. A business client may ask about efficiency and productivity, but what they're really after is peace of mind or recognition from their boss. The key is to listen carefully, ask the right questions, and watch for the emotional cues beneath the logical words. When you discover that emotion, you can tailor your message so it resonates on a deeper level. Pinpoint reflection. Here's a simple but powerful exercise for you. Think about your product, your service, or even just an idea you've been trying to persuade someone to accept. Now ask yourself, what emotion does this really satisfy? Is it the desire for gain, the fear of loss, the need for comfort and security, or the longing for recognition and status? Write it down, and the next time you present, test it. Frame your message not in terms of features, but in terms of that emotional benefit. Watch how the response changes. The truth is, emotions drive decisions, and logic follows behind to justify them. People might explain their choices with logic, but they make their choices with feelings. When you understand that, when you stop selling drills and start selling holes, when you stop selling treadmills and start selling confidence, you stop being just another salesperson. You become someone who understands people at their core. And that, ultimately, is what makes you persuasive.
Part 3. Building Rapport. Here's a simple truth that Brian Tracy emphasizes. No one buys from people they don't like. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever walked into a store or sat across from a salesperson who just rubbed you the wrong way? Maybe they were too aggressive, too distracted, or simply didn't seem genuine. Even if they had a great product, chances are you didn't buy from them. On the other hand, when you meet someone who makes you feel comfortable, understood, and respected, you naturally want to continue the conversation. You want to give them your time, your attention, and often your business. That's the power of rapport. Rapport is not about manipulation or trickery. It's about creating a genuine human connection, the kind that makes the other person feel at ease and open to hearing what you have to say. The psychology of likability and trust. At its core, rapport is built on two psychological pillars, likability and trust. Likability comes from warmth, friendliness, and shared humanity. People are naturally drawn to others who are approachable and positive. Trust comes from consistency, honesty, and reliability. People want to feel safe with you, that you have their best interests at heart, and that you'll deliver on what you promise. If you focus only on making the sale, but ignore likability and trust, the relationship collapses. But if you prioritize connection, you create a foundation that makes everything else easier. Strategies to build rapport. Brian Tracy shares several strategies to strengthen rapport, and they're surprisingly simple, yet incredibly powerful. Mirror and match. Humans are wired to feel comfortable with those who are similar to them. When you subtly mirror someone's body language, tone, or pace of speech, you create an unconscious sense of harmony. If they're speaking slowly and thoughtfully, slow yourself down. If they're energetic and expressive, bring a bit more energy into your own delivery. This doesn't mean copying them like a robot. It means gently aligning your energy with theirs so they feel, this person is like me. Find common ground quickly. People like people who are like them. The faster you can discover shared experiences, interests, or values, the faster rapport grows. Maybe you grew up in a similar place, enjoy the same type of food, or have kids around the same age. Even something as simple as, I love that book too, can build an instant bridge. Common ground reduces barriers and reminds both of you that you're not just strangers, you're humans with connections. Listen more than you talk. This might be the most important principle of all. People love to feel heard, yet most of us spend far more time thinking about what we're going to say next than truly listening. Tracy reminds us, selling is not telling. Selling is asking. When you ask questions and then really listen, you show genuine interest. And when someone feels heard, they begin to trust you. The 80-20 rule of conversation. Here's a practical guideline you can start using immediately. Aim for an 80-20 split. That means in a sales conversation, or really any conversation, you should spend about 80% of your time listening and only 20% speaking. Most people get this backwards. They talk and talk, hoping to convince the other person with more information. But persuasion doesn't come from flooding someone with details. It comes from understanding what matters to them and then aligning your message to those needs. And the only way to understand is to listen. Application. Here's your challenge. In your very next conversation, whether it's with a client, a colleague, or even a family member, resist the urge to dominate. Instead, consciously shift into listening mode. Ask an open-ended question and then be silent. Let them talk. Nod, affirm, and show that you're engaged. Notice how the dynamic changes when you step back and give them space. You'll likely find that the person becomes more relaxed, more open, and more willing to share what really matters to them. That's rapport at work. Remember this: people buy people before they buy products. They buy trust, comfort, and connection before they buy features or benefits. If you can master the skill of building rapport by mirroring, finding common ground, and especially by listening more than you speak, you'll find that conversations flow more smoothly, objections become easier to handle, and opportunities open up naturally. Rapport is not a trick. It's the human foundation that makes every persuasive effort possible. Build it well, and everything else becomes easier.
Part 4. The power of questions. Here's something Brian Tracy makes clear. The best salespeople don't pitch, they probe. Most beginners in selling make the mistake of talking too much. They bombard the other person with features, benefits, statistics, and stories, hoping that somewhere in that avalanche of information, the buyer will say yes. But in reality, this approach usually pushes people away. The most effective persuaders understand that the key isn't in talking more, it's in asking better questions. So why are questions so powerful? First, questions shift the focus onto the buyer. Instead of you being the center of attention, questions turn the spotlight on the other person. People love to talk about themselves, their goals, their struggles, their dreams. When you give them space to do that, you not only learn valuable information, you also make them feel important. Second, questions uncover true needs and desires. Often, people don't even know exactly what they want until they start talking it through. By asking the right questions, you help them clarify their own thinking. And once their needs are clear, you can tailor your solution to fit perfectly. And third, questions guide the buyer toward convincing themselves. This is the magic. If you tell someone why they should buy, they may resist. But if you guide them with questions that lead them to say out loud why the solution makes sense for them, it becomes their idea, and people rarely argue with their own conclusions. The 3 types of questions. Brian Tracy highlights 3 main categories of questions that every effective salesperson should master. Open-ended questions. These invite conversation rather than shutting it down. Instead of asking yes or no questions like, do you like this? Ask something broader. What are you looking for in a new phone? What matters most to you when choosing a financial advisor? How do you see this project helping your team? Open-ended questions encourage the other person to share their priorities and values, giving you the roadmap to what really matters. Problem questions. These help uncover pain points and frustrations. What challenges are you currently facing with your current supplier? Where do you feel things are breaking down in your current system? What's holding you back from reaching your goals right now? Pain is a powerful motivator. When people talk about their problems, they become more open to solutions. And when you position yourself as the person who can solve those problems, you become invaluable. And future pacing questions. These encourage people to imagine the positive outcome of solving their problem. How would it feel if this challenge was completely resolved? What would it mean for your team if this project was successful? How would your life change if this solution worked exactly as you wanted? Future pacing taps into emotion. It lets people picture the relief, joy, or success they'll feel once the problem is solved. And once they've emotionally experienced that future in their mind, they're far more likely to take action to make it real. When you master these three types of questions, conversations transform. Instead of being a one-way pitch, the interaction becomes a discovery process. The buyer feels heard, respected, and understood. And you, the persuader, gain all the insight you need to frame your offering in a way that connects directly to their heart and mind. Let's make this practical. Take a few minutes today to write down 5 powerful questions you can use to uncover needs in your own context. If you're in business, it might be questions for your clients. If you're in leadership, it might be questions for your team. If you're in relationships, it might be questions for your partner, your child, or your friends. Here are some prompts to get you started. What's most important to you about? What do you find most challenging about? How would things be different for you if? What do you wish you had more support with? If you could change one thing right now, what would it be? The key is not just to write them down, but to actually use them. Try them in your next real conversation and notice how much more open and engaged the other person becomes. So remember, great salespeople don't push, they pull. They don't try to overwhelm people with information. Instead, they ask thoughtful questions that draw out what the buyer already wants and needs. When you shift from pitching to probing, from talking to listening, you move from being just another salesperson to becoming a trusted advisor. And once people trust you to understand them, selling stops feeling like selling. It becomes helping, guiding people towards the solutions they were already looking for.
Part 5. Handling Objections. Here's a mindset shift that Tracy teaches. Objections aren't rejection. They're actually buying signals. Think about it. If someone wasn't interested at all, they wouldn't bother raising objections. They'd simply say no and walk away. The very fact that a person is voicing concerns means they're engaged. They're considering the decision. They're weighing the possibility of saying yes, but something is holding them back. That hesitation is not the end of the conversation. It's the beginning of a real one. Most beginners dread objections. They see them as roadblocks. But seasoned salespeople welcome them because every objection is a chance to move closer to agreement. An objection is essentially the buyer saying, I need more clarity. I need more reassurance. I need to know you really understand me. When you hear an objection, don't panic. Don't get defensive. Instead, recognize it for what it is, an opportunity to build trust and move the conversation forward. Tracy's 4-step process. Tracy outlines a simple but powerful process for handling objections gracefully. Listen fully. Don't interrupt. The biggest mistake you can make is to jump in too quickly. When someone says, this seems expensive, or I'm not sure this will work for me, your instinct might be to immediately defend your product. Resist that urge. Let them finish. Often, the real objection comes after the first sentence. If you cut them off, you'll never hear it. Acknowledge. That's a great question. People want to feel respected. By acknowledging the objection in a positive way, I'm glad you brought that up, or that's an excellent question, you turn potential tension into collaboration. It shows that you welcome their concerns rather than fighting them. Respond with empathy. This is where many salespeople go wrong. They jump straight to logic without showing understanding. Before you answer, let the buyer know you get how they feel. For example, I completely understand why you'd be concerned about price. Many of our clients felt the same way at first. But what they found was that the value they received actually saved them far more than the initial investment. That little bit of empathy lowers defenses and opens the door for your response. Provide reassurance. Answer clearly, calmly, and with confidence. Now, give your response. Do it in a way that's calm, clear, and confident. If you waffle or sound uncertain, you only feed their doubts. But if you speak with quiet assurance, you help them feel safe moving forward. Common objections. Most objections fall into a few predictable categories. They're usually about price, it's too expensive; value, I'm not sure it's worth it; trust, I don't know if this will work for me; timing, this isn't the right time; or authority, I need to talk to someone else before deciding. The words may vary, but the underlying themes are the same. And the good news is, because these objections are predictable, you can prepare for them. Pro tip: prepare in advance. Here's a practical exercise. Make a list of the top 5 objections you hear most often, in your work, your projects, or even in personal conversations. Then, script out powerful, empathetic responses to each one. For example, if price is a common objection, don't wait to fumble through it in the moment. Prepare a response like, "I completely understand the concern about price. Many of our clients felt the same way at first. But what they found was that the value they received actually saved them far more than the initial investment." If timing is the issue, you might respond with, "I hear you. Timing is always a concern. Let me ask, what would have to happen for the timing to feel right for you?" Notice how both responses acknowledge, empathize, and then gently guide the conversation forward. Reframing objections. One more advanced strategy is to reframe objections into opportunities. Instead of seeing "it's too expensive" as a negative, see it as a sign the buyer is serious enough to consider cost. Instead of seeing "I need to think about it" as a brush-off, see it as a chance to dig deeper. Absolutely. What specifically would you like to think through? By reframing, you stay calm, positive, and in control, which reassures the other person that they're in safe hands. So remember, objections aren't rejection. They're signs of interest. They're invitations to connect more deeply, to clarify, and to reassure. When you handle objections with patience, empathy, and confidence, you transform moments of doubt into moments of trust. And trust is what leads to yes. So don't fear objections. Prepare for them. Welcome them. Because every objection you overcome brings you one step closer to helping the other person say yes to a decision that benefits them. Part 6. Closing the sale. Here's a harsh reality that Tracy points out. Most sales are lost not because the buyer said no, but because a seller never asked for the close. Think about it. A salesperson spends all this time building rapport, uncovering needs, presenting solutions, handling objections, and then freezes at the finish line. They're afraid to ask for a decision. They hesitate, and the opportunity slips away. But closing is not something to fear. Closing is simply the natural conclusion of a good conversation. If you listen well, ask questions, handled objections, and demonstrated value, then asking for a commitment is not pushy. It's helpful. You're guiding the other person to make a decision that benefits them. Closing is about service. And this is an important mindset shift. Closing isn't manipulation. It's not tricking someone into saying yes. True closing is about helping someone follow through on something they already want. Think of it this way. If you genuinely believe your product, service, or idea improves lives, then not closing is actually a disservice. By avoiding the close, you leave people stuck in indecision, missing out on a solution that could help them. Tracy's closing techniques. Tracy teaches a number of practical techniques for closing. Let's look at 3 of the most effective. The assumptive close. Here, you act as though the decision has already been made and move naturally to the next step. For example, when would you like delivery? Should we set up your account today? Do you prefer morning or afternoon for your first session? The assumptive close works because it projects confidence. It helps the buyer feel comfortable moving forward without overthinking. The alternative close. Instead of asking yes or no questions, offer 2 positive choices. For example,
Would you prefer the standard package or the premium package? Should we start on Monday or Wednesday? Do you want to pay in full today, or would a payment plan work better? This technique keeps the focus on deciding how to move forward, not whether to move forward. The summary close. In this approach, you recap the key benefits the buyer has already agreed with, then ask for the decision. For example, so you've said this solution will save you time, lower your costs, and give you peace of mind. It sounds like it checks all your boxes. Shall we move ahead? This summary close works because it reminds the buyer of the value, reinforces their own words, and makes the next step feel like common sense. Overcoming the fear of closing. Why do so many people hesitate to close? Often, it's fear of rejection. We don't want to hear no, so we avoid asking. But here's the truth. Not asking is already a no. At least if you ask, you give yourself and the other person the chance to say yes. Tracy suggests that you treat closing like a natural extension of the conversation. Don't make it dramatic. Don't change your tone suddenly. Simply keep the same calm, confident energy you've had throughout. The more relaxed you are, the easier it feels for the other person to commit. A skill you can practice anywhere. Closing isn't just for sales professionals. It's a life skill. Anytime you ask for a decision, you're practicing closing. At work, shall we finalize this plan today or tomorrow? With friends, do you want to meet at 6 or 7? At home, should we start the project this weekend or next? The more you practice asking for small commitments in everyday life, the more natural it becomes to ask for big commitments when it really matters. Exercise. Here's your action step for this week. Practice one simple close in a non-sales setting. It could be asking your family, should we cook at home or go out tonight? Or asking a colleague, would you like to review this together on Monday or Wednesday? The goal isn't to pressure anyone. The goal is to build comfort in guiding decisions. Because once you see that closing is just helping people choose, the fear disappears. So remember, most sales are lost because the seller never asked. Don't let that be you. Closing isn't about manipulation. It's about clarity. It's about service. It's about guiding someone to make a decision that will improve their life. When you close with confidence, you not only increase your success, you also increase the number of people whose lives are better because of what you offered them.
Part 7. Continuous Improvement. Brian Tracy ends with a powerful truth. The top 20% of salespeople earn 80% of the income. This isn't just the cliche about success, it's backed by decades of real-world data. Now, here's the question. What separates the top 20% from everyone else? It's not luck. It's not talent alone. It's not even the product or the industry. The difference is relentless, ongoing learning. You are your most valuable asset. Tracy emphasizes that you are the most important investment you'll ever make. Your skills, your knowledge, your confidence, your ability to communicate. These are the assets that generate income, opportunity, and long-term growth. Think about it. Companies come and go. Products change, markets shift. But the one constant is you. When you continually grow yourself, you remain valuable no matter what happens around you. The habit of continuous learning. The best performers in every field share one trait. They never stop learning. They read books that sharpen their mindset. They attend workshops and training sessions. They study the masters, modeling what already works. They seek feedback even when it stings, because feedback is the raw material of growth. This doesn't happen by accident. It's a conscious habit, a daily commitment to improvement. Practical ways to improve. So, how do you put this into action? Tracy gives us several practical strategies. Role-play conversations. Find the colleague, a friend, or even practice in the mirror. Rehearse common scenarios, opening a meeting, handling an objection, asking for the close. When you role-play, you build muscle memory. That way, when the real moment comes, your responses are smooth and confident. Record yourself and review. This one can feel uncomfortable, but it's incredibly powerful. Record your calls, presentations, or even casual practice sessions. Then listen back. You'll hear filler words, hesitations, or missed opportunities that you couldn't catch in real time. And once you notice them, you can fix them. Invest in training. Buy courses, attend seminars, listen to audiobooks. Learn from people who've already achieved what you're aiming for. Think of training as sharpening your tools. The sharper they are, the easier the job becomes. Compounding growth. Here's the amazing part. Learning compounds. If you commit just 30 minutes a day to improving your craft, reading, practicing, or studying, that adds up to over 180 hours a year. That's the equivalent of attending more than a month's worth of full-time training every single year. Most people won't make that commitment. That's why most people stay in the 80%. But if you do, if you make learning non-negotiable, you'll quickly separate yourself from the crowd. Reflection exercise. So here's your challenge. Decide where you can commit to 30 minutes a day of learning in your craft. Could you listen to an audiobook during your commute? Could you read one chapter before bed? Could you practice questions and objections for half an hour each morning? Pick one, write it down, and stick to it for the next 30 days. Remember, success doesn't come from occasional big efforts. It comes from small, consistent improvements compounded over time. So, as you finish this journey through the psychology of selling, remember this. The tools you've learned, building belief, understanding emotions, asking questions, handling objections, closing the sale, these are not one-time lessons. They are lifelong practices. The more you sharpen them, the more natural they become. And the more natural they become, the greater your success, not just in selling, but in every area of life where influence and communication matter. Brian Tracy says it best: invest in yourself. You are your most valuable asset. The top 20% are not superhuman. They are simply people who decided to keep learning when others stopped. The question now is, will you?
Recap and closing. As we come to the end of The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy, let's pause and bring all the lessons together. Because while each principle is powerful on its own, it's when they connect that they truly transform how you influence, persuade, and lead. Success begins with your self-image. Everything starts on the inside. You can't consistently outperform the way you see yourself. If you believe you're not capable, not persuasive, not good at selling, that belief will sabotage you. But when you build a strong self-image, confidence grows, and that confidence becomes contagious. People believe in you because you believe in yourself. People buy emotionally, justify logically. This is the heart of human decision-making. We buy with our hearts and then defend our choice with our minds. That's why your focus should always be on emotions, on benefits, not features. People don't buy the drill. They buy the hole in the wall. They don't buy the gym membership. They buy confidence in the mirror. Find the emotion and you'll find the sale. Build trust through rapport and listening. No one buys from someone they don't like or trust. That's why rapport is everything. Mirror and match. Find common ground. Listen more than you speak. Remember, selling isn't telling. Selling is asking. Ask powerful questions. The best persuaders guide with questions. Open-ended questions uncover priorities. Problem questions reveal pain points. Future-pacing questions help people imagine their life after the solution. When they say the answers out loud, they convince themselves. And that's far stronger than you trying to convince them. Handle objections with empathy. Objections are not rejection. They're signs of interest. When concerns come up, don't resist them. Welcome them. Listen fully, acknowledge respectfully, respond with empathy, reassure with confidence. Every objection you handle well is a step closer to trust, and trust is what leads to yes. Close confidently. Most opportunities are lost not because the buyer said no, but because the seller never asked. Closing is not manipulation. It's service. It's helping someone make a decision that will benefit them. Whether it's the assumptive close,
The alternative close, or the summary close, always remember, asking for the decision is an act of clarity and leadership. Continuous improvement. The top 20% never stop learning. They read, they practice, they role play, they study. They know they are their greatest asset, and they invest in themselves daily. Just 30 minutes a day of focused learning adds up to massive growth over time. Beyond sales. And finally, never forget, this isn't just about business transactions. The psychology of selling applies everywhere. In families, in leadership, in friendships, in every human interaction where influence matters. Because selling, at its core, is not about products, it's about people. So here's the big picture. Believe in yourself. Connect with others. Ask, listen, and guide. Handle resistance with patience. And close with confidence, knowing you've served. Do this consistently, and you won't just improve your sales. You'll improve your influence, your relationships, and your ability to create positive change in every area of life. Because selling, when done right, is not about pressure. It's about helping. It's about leading. It's about making life better for the people you serve and for yourself.
Part 8. Applying this beyond sales. Here's something Brian Tracy emphasizes that often gets overlooked. The psychology of selling isn't just about sales. Yes, it's a book about business and persuasion, but at its core, it's really about influence. And influence shows up everywhere in life, not just in a sales conversation. Selling is human. Think about it. We're all in sales, whether we realize it or not. A parent is selling when they encourage their child to study or eat healthier. A teacher is selling when they motivate students to engage in the lesson. A leader is selling when they inspire their team to embrace a new vision. A professional is selling when they negotiate for a promotion or a raise. Even in friendships and relationships, we're selling when we persuade someone to try a new restaurant, take a trip, or see things from our perspective. Wherever humans are involved, the psychology of selling applies. Universal principles of influence. The principles you've learned throughout this journey, belief, rapport, questioning, handling objections, closing, these are not confined to business. They are universal tools of influence. Belief. If you don't believe in yourself, others won't believe in you. Rapport. Trust and likability are the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Questions. The best leaders and friends don't give lectures. They ask questions that draw out the other person's thoughts. Objections. Resistance shows up in every conversation. How you listen, empathize, and respond determines whether you deepen trust or create distance. Closing. Every decision in life requires someone to take the lead and guide the choice. Once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. They're everywhere. The ripple effect. Imagine applying these ideas consistently, not just at work, but in every area of life. At home, your conversations become smoother. Conflicts resolve more easily. At work, your influence grows. People listen when you speak and they follow your lead. In your personal growth, you gain confidence because you know you can connect, persuade, and inspire. The ripple effect is profound. By becoming better at selling, in the broadest sense, you become better at leading, teaching, parenting, partnering, and even simply being a good friend. Closing thought. So let's end with this perspective. The psychology of selling is not really about selling, it's about people. It's about understanding how people think, what motivates them, and how to guide them toward better decisions. Whether that decision is to buy a product, embrace an idea, or simply believe in themselves, the principles are the same. And the more you practice them, the more influence, impact, and fulfillment you'll experience in every corner of your life.
Thank you for spending your time with me here on A Little Bit of Everything. If you found value in this deep dive into the psychology of selling by Brian Tracy, I'd love for you to subscribe and stay connected. This channel is all about exploring timeless wisdom, from the greatest books, thinkers and ideas that continue to shape our world. And I'd love to hear from you. Which of these lessons are you most excited to try first? Was it building rapport, asking powerful questions, or maybe the idea of closing with confidence? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your reflections might just inspire someone else in this community. Remember, growth doesn't come all at once. It comes one idea, one practice, one conversation at a time. So keep growing, keep learning, and never forget, every conversation is a chance to sell an idea, to inspire someone, and to make a difference. Until next time, this is a little bit of everything. Stay curious, stay consistent, and I'll see you in the next episode.